Kingdom Hearts is seen by many as one of the most respected franchises of all time, where even those who aren't fans of the game can still respect the legacy that it's left. When the first game came out when I was a kid, anyone who had it was seen as the coolest kid on the playground, and by the time Kingdom Hearts 2 came out, the typical response was, "Big deal, we all have that game." It was that big. Yet nowadays, you're not likely to find anyone who knows anything about it anymore. They may be able to tell you certain aspects about the lore or a couple characters' names, but there aren't many people left who actually know what the Kingdom Hearts story is all about. What happened between now and then? Why is it known less for its story and more for being a game about Disney pals? When did Kingdom Hearts die? If I were to ask you about why the Kingdom Hearts franchise went south, you might say it was because of the 14-year gap between Kingdom Hearts 2 and 3, or you might say that it was because the storyline is just too convoluted for people to understand. While yes, I can see why both of those theories might be right, both of them would be far overreaching to say as the main cause for the series' demise. For instance, Mother 3 came out a whopping 13 years after Earthbound, and even though it never got a Western release, it's still considered a cult classic among JRPG fans. Similarly, Metal Gear Solid has one of the most complicated plots of any game franchise out there, yet that doesn't seem to stop would-be fans from trying out the game, let alone losing old fans. So what's the real reason? Well, in order to understand that, I think we should start off by addressing what made Kingdom Hearts so successful in the first place. As I'm sure you know by now, Kingdom Hearts is a crossover between Disney and Final Fantasy with its own original characters and plotline thrown in. When it first came out in 2002, it was following what can only be seen as the golden age of Final Fantasy and Disney. Back then, Disney was pumping out movies like Aladdin, Mulan, Hercules, and The Lion King. In fact, the worst movie around this period was The Emperor's New Groove, which is still a very popular movie among Disney fans. Plus, the first Kingdom Hearts game came out only 1 year after Final Fantasy X, which was a major hit and is still considered one of the best games for the PlayStation 2, if not of all time. If Squaresoft was making a game, you knew it was going to be good. Not only that, but crossovers were still relatively rare back in this time period, and combining two of the most beloved media companies of all time felt like a fever dream. Then, when the game came out, it didn't disappoint. Not only did it make us cheer whenever we saw our childhood favorites interacting with each other, but the storyline was clear and easy to follow. Combine that with characters with great designs that we'd love to root for and pretty dang good game mechanics, and you end up with an instant classic. That wasn't all though. If you completed 100% of the game, you'd see a preview for Kingdom Hearts 2, and it was the most amazing preview for any game I'd ever seen in my entire life. Then we only had to wait 2 years until the next game, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories? For the Game Boy Advance? Honestly, when this game came out, I thought it was just another spin-off that had nothing to do with the plot. I just bought it because it had the Kingdom Hearts name on it. As it so turned out though, it wasn't just a continuation of the storyline, but it was required reading. Sure, you could theoretically play Kingdom Hearts 2 without completing Chain of Memories. You just need to overlook a few parts and ease your way into it. Still though, I felt like I was part of an elite secret club. I was one of the people who played the middle game and got the complete story when some of my friends were wondering what they missed. Kingdom Hearts 2 is still considered by a good chunk of the community to be the greatest game in the series, but that's mostly because after that, things went a little off course. Let me just preface this by talking about what's going on with both companies at this point. The newly named Square Enix's most recent release is Final Fantasy X-2, a game which was a little underwhelming, followed by Final Fantasy XI, an online-only experiment that completely failed. Meanwhile, over on Disney's end, they just finished work on their two biggest movies of the year, Home on the Range and Around the World in 80 Days. Yeah, neither company is doing too hot right now, which is kinda tarnishing the feelings that people have around Square Enix and Disney in general. Then it takes another 4.5 years before Kingdom Hearts releases their next game called 358 over 2 days? And it's on the Nintendo DS? Needless to say, the marketing alone was terrible, and with the perfect way that Kingdom Hearts 2 ended, lots of people were left with a bad taste in their mouth knowing that Square was continuing to shamelessly cash grab from their fans. The game wasn't even a continuation of the plot. It was a legitimate spin-off game revolving around Roxas. Luckily though, the next mainline entry in the series was right around the corner, and its name was Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep? Wait, this isn't Kingdom Hearts 3? And it's on the PSP? And it's a prequel? By this point, if you were a Kingdom Hearts fan, you'd probably dropped off a long time ago. it was now unlikely that you'd be willing to get back into the series just due to how many spin-offs there were on completely different gaming systems. It seemed like the actual storyline was dead, and now the development team was just milking the remaining die-hard fans for as much money as they could. Case in point, Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, a game whose sole purpose was to bring back crowd favorites who had died during Kingdom Hearts 2. You know what the kicker is though? It was on yet another console, the 3DS. Let's go back to Disney. What are they doing? Oh, they actually came out with some pretty good movies lately. Tangled brought back the old Disney that we grew up with and loved, and even better, they followed it up with Frozen, another cinematic success. Sure, they never came out with another good movie after that, but we didn't know that at the time. Maybe Square Enix is— nope, they still haven't come out with a good Final Fantasy game since 10. In fact, they all flopped so hard that Dream Drop Distance had to include characters from The World Ends With You in order to fill in for the Final Fantasy characters. Even Tetsuya Nomura, the creator of Kingdom Hearts, got kicked off the Final Fantasy XV team and retaliated by essentially taking Final Fantasy out of Kingdom Hearts entirely. And it would still take another 7 years before we got the next actual mainline entry into the series, Kingdom Hearts 3. And finally, this one was on the PlayStation again. I remember picking up my copy the first day it came out. I started a new game, and who are all these people? No, but seriously, while I barely knew who these people were, I knew that a lot of Kingdom Hearts fans, maybe even most of them, felt like the rug was pulled out from under them. Nomura was legitimately tying games from 5 different consoles spanning around 20 years and just expecting us to have followed along the entire time. And that's not including the mobile game Union Cross, which started out as a Japan exclusive and also has relevance to the game's storyline. So, as you can imagine, a game that's been going on for years and years across multiple plot lines is going to be difficult to follow. But that's not even the problem with the plot. The problem is just how insanely difficult it is to follow along, even supposing you have played all the games before. Dream Drop Distance, along with introducing Resurrection, also included time travel, which means that now we have to understand rules for traveling forward and backwards in time that are even more difficult to understand than the Zamasu arc. Even that, though, is easy stuff when you consider that every single game is absolutely full of retcons. For those of you who don't know, a retcon is when the writer takes something that you thought you understood and finds a way to say either, you misinterpreted that, or I just straight up lied to you before. This guy Ansem, who's supposed to be researching Heartless, he's actually a bad guy. Your best friend Riku? He's actually Ansem. But also not really, because this guy is Ansem, he's actually a good guy. Except to Naminé, he's kind of a dick to Naminé. Nomura also did this with Union Cross, making us believe that our OC in the game was reincarnated as the main antagonist of the series, Xehanort, who in and of himself is a retcon. But no, the OC was just reincarnated to be Xehanort's caregiver. Then the plot revolves around the rules which you can't figure out because you can't remember which rules were broken in the retcon, and people are putting their hearts into other people, and Sora commits seppuku and turns into a Heartless, but then he gets his body back, but not really because his body belongs to Roxas and his memories are going into the girl from 350 over 2 days, which they're trying to make relevant again, and I'm someone who actually understands the plot. While the overarching reason that Kingdom Hearts 3 was bad mainly boiled down to the fact that 90% of the game was spent helping Disney fill their pockets, it also didn't help that people who only played Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 couldn't follow along with the game that they probably thought they'd enjoy. If you never played Xenoblade Chronicles 1 or 2, you could still play the third game and know what's going on, even though it continued on the lore of the first 2 games. For Kingdom Hearts fans, keeping up with the lore is nearly impossible. Even now, they're continuing with the storyline in between the game after Union Cross, but before Birth by Sleep, and you're going to have to play every single game in order to understand what's going on. I personally love the story of Kingdom Hearts, and that includes all the retcons from every single game. But for the average person, it's just too much of a commitment. Only the most adamant fans would buy every single console and play every single game, but even they might have a hard time following along. If Kingdom Hearts wants to survive, or at least attract new fans, maybe they need to follow in the footsteps of the Xenoblade games. Make each game unique, a game where you don't need to have any prior knowledge in order to enjoy it, and then maybe add some lore that continues the lore of the other games sprinkled in just to keep past fans happy. One of the aspects that made Final Fantasy such a huge success was that you didn't need to know the lore of any of the previous games in order to enjoy the one you were playing. While I enjoy the journey I've had with this series, I know that I'm an outlier. People just aren't that committed, and because of that, the franchise may have missed out on even more fans who could appreciate the series just as much as I do. Kingdom Hearts is a great series, but for most people, it's too complicated an experience to get into. and aside from a few diehards like myself, it might even be dead. But what do you think though? Is Kingdom Hearts still going strong? Have you ever played the games? Leave a comment to let me know, and I'll see you guys next time.